Hi, my name's Don Deems. I'm a dentist and a professional coach, and I work with dentists around the country, do a lot of speaking and writing, and I'm very, very happy to be here with you today. One of the topics that we're going to talk about today is an introduction into understanding people, and it's called Why People Do What They Do and Why They Don't Do What They Should Do. You're probably shaking your head, yeah, I see a lot of that, and you probably notice in yourself that you sometimes wonder why you don't do what you should do when you know that you really should. So we're gonna look at this topic. It by no means is an exhaustive overview of this, but there's some very, very important things that I want you to get, because you know what? Your success in practice is going to depend a lot on your ability to understand people. It's going to help prevent a lot of heartaches and a lot of headaches, okay? So let's spend a few moments and let's really start going into this. So I first want to talk about, why does this topic matter? Why should I sit and listen to this guy talking about this? Well, a couple reasons. And this is a really important reason. If you don't know this, you're actually in the business of helping people. Yes, helping people. And in order to help people really well, you've got to be able to understand them. And that includes why they do what they do and why they shouldn't do certain things, right? So remember that. It's super critical. The other part of this is you're going to be working with a team of people. And this team they are your greatest asset. They can also be, as you'll find out, your greatest liability. So your ability, however, to understand what drives these people and why they do the things that they do when you can get totally exasperated. If you can start the process right now of making understanding people a priority for you, you're going to find a lot of fulfillment and peace and happiness in what you do. I love going to work every day. I wasn't always like that, but I do now. And part of that is because of this sort of topic and spending time and becoming a lifelong student of people, behavior, etc. So let's, just for clarity, let's talk about the purpose of this short presentation. The first thing is understanding yourself more. Now, believe it or not, we spend a lot of time not really spending much time thinking about who we are and developing this really deep awareness about that. We're kind of going through the motions. And what I want to encourage you to do is to stop going through the motions and spend as much time trying to understand yourself and becoming aware of your actions and what you do. That is going to be a key element for you when you leave your training program. So remember that, okay? Another part of this presentation really is about being able to make more informed choices for yourself. When we understand, what we do and why we shouldn't do, then we're much more able to make the decisions that we need to make for ourselves. And we can also help other people make better choices for them. We can also help them. So we work with them the model that you may have been taught about telling people what they need, sometimes you'll find that works, but most of the time it doesn't. And so your ability to understand this topic is super critical, okay? So that really emphasizes this last point, which is understanding and expanding your awareness of others. Understanding what is it that drives people to do what they do. Some of it will drive you crazy, and some of it will not. But if you'll take the time to embrace this topic, then you're going to have a long and rich and rewarding journey in this wonderful, wonderful profession. And I'm saying it's wonderful because, believe it or not, it is a gift, and you were given this gift. Yes, I know you went through Undergrad school, you're in school now and you've had to work hard. You know what? I've been there, I've done that. I understand. But regardless, it's a gift for reasons that you probably won't figure out anytime soon, but it is a wonderful gift. Now, what's the purpose today? Well, quite simply, the other element is just being able to support those that you serve. This support is super critical in terms of developing the kind of relationships that are going to be meaningful and are going to help people achieve their goals and objectives, whatever they may be. All right? So, that's important. So here's the overview, the areas that are most relevant. The first one is that there are going to be some topics, and by the way, I'm scratching the surface today, but there are going to be some topics that you recognize and that you understand. You say, oh yeah, I've heard of that one. I already know that one. Okay, great. I'm not going to challenge you on that. But I want you to recognize that it's a topic, and again, become that student about this whole thing about understanding people. The second is that there's going to be some things that you're going to go, what? What does that have to do with anything? I promise you, it does. And so keep these in the back of that mind, keep it on the back burner, even for things that you say, that guy, no way. And I want to tell you, these are topics that really matter. And then, of course, many of them are not only going to be foreign, but they're not going to make any sense to you. You're going to wonder, where did he come up with that? That's pretty nuts. So let's move into it, okay? And I guess I can emphasize this last point. Every single one of these is important. And if I had a week with you, we would spend a lot of time on these and many more in much greater detail. So let's hit some of these running, okay? And see where you are with this and understand this is a start for you. So the very first one and the most critical one, far and above anything else, is self-awareness. So we say self-awareness. Well, what does self-awareness mean? I'm aware that I'm sitting here and talking to you today, looking at a camera, right? I'm aware of that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the awareness about what are the things that have occurred in our lives, what are the things that drive us to make certain decisions, etc. So that doesn't happen without taking this introspective journey which lasts an absolute lifetime. Because our lives will change. And you know what? The rewards for doing that are the greatest rewards out there. Unfortunately, in our culture, we're not really taught to do that. We're not taught to look inward. We're taught to look outward. And what I'm asking you to do is, if you want to know why people do what they do and why they shouldn't do the things that they end up doing, one of the most important elements is this self-awareness factor. So when I say self-awareness, that means understanding the emotional elements, the spiritual elements, the intellectual elements, the physical elements, all those sorts of things which are important to us. And nobody can do that or go on that journey but you. You have to make it happen. It's your choice. And I can't encourage you enough to make that decision. Let's look at the next topic, which is perspective. People have lots of perspectives on things. And there's a saying out there which is absolutely true, which is perspective is reality. Perspective is reality. So let's talk about your patient. I call them clients, so you may hear me go between patient and client regularly, or I may just call them people. So people have all kinds of perspectives on life, and they have that for specific reasons. If you were in their shoes and experienced everything from the time of their birth until the point in time that perhaps you're sitting there talking to them, they have a certain perspective. And there's a term that we use. It's called present perfect. And what that means is that if that person were to live their life over again, starting from that same exact moment in time from when they're born and have those experiences, they're going to end up in the same exact position, the same exact place. So understanding that they may have a completely different perspective than what you have is really critical, because that is their reality. Part of your job in helping people is many times opening them up to different perspectives. Okay? You can't change their reality. You can't change their reality. But sometimes there are going to be openings that a perspective can be changed. So understand that people have perspectives, and there's reasons for that, and they're not wrong reasons. You have your perspective, and everybody that you know has their perspective, and their perspective is their reality. So remember that. Don't forget that. So when you're talking to a client, patient, or a best friend, that's super critical. Another element is about personal values. My values aren't your values. Your values aren't my values. Your client, your patient's values aren't going to be the same as yours. Wouldn't it be nice if their values were, yes, I want to get my mouth in completely healthy condition and do whatever it takes and spend whatever it takes so that I am on this road of health for life, dental health for life. I'm all for it. I think you already know this far along in your training that that's not going to happen. So people have reasons for this, all right? And one of this is that they have certain values. And these values come from a lot of different things, especially our parents, right? That's a very common thing. What our parents value typically are things that we value. In fact, it's often been said that many of times our values are almost wired into who we are. Okay, that they're almost wired in. So remember that you cannot change somebody's values. You may influence their values, and there's a lot of ways that you can do that that will help them do the things that they should do. Okay? But just by sitting there and saying, I'm the doctor and this is what you should do, that won't work. It just won't work. You're not going to experience very much success in your practice if you do that. So keep in mind that it's important to understand their values. In another program, we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. So let's move on. Next topic is rigid self-defining roles. People see themselves in certain roles, okay? In fact, most people, their whole identity of who they are as an individual is centered around a role or roles that they have in their life. A very simple example is that a woman may see herself as a mother to her children and nothing more. That's it. So what's on her mind is, I've got to take care of my kids. My kids come first. The heck with my mouth. Very common, okay? Very common. And that's another reason why people don't do what they should do, even if they know better. So these people, they're not stupid. They know what they should be doing, but they see themselves in this certain role and they don't see it in a different way. So you can help them see that this role is limiting. You can't sit down and say, you're in this limiting role here, because they're going to look at you like you come from Mars. However, by understanding that they are viewing themselves in a certain role, it will help you help them better. And remember, that's what we're in the business of doing, is helping people. Emotional damage and triggers. Boy, we get a lot of that in dentistry, don't we? If you haven't already had that experience where people come in frightened to death of receiving dental care, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And you know, might not have even been something that awful. But again, what did I say about perception? Perception is reality. To them, it could have been a horrible experience. You'll hear, if you haven't heard already, a story which will say, yeah, when that dentist pulled that tooth, he put his knee in my chest. Whenever I hear that from a patient, a client, I laugh with them about that. And I say, well, hold it, I've always wanted to try that. So, and I stand up and I try to put my knee on their chest and I say, I can't do that. Have a little fun with it. But the truth is that, emotions, especially in areas where there's been emotional damage, and certain what we call triggers, which are things that happen that cause people just to react to certain things in a certain way. Those are going to be many of the obstacles that stop people in their tracks from doing what they know they should do. I have yet, in all the years I've been in practice, and it's been a lot, but in all the years I've been in practice where I've had somebody come to me that their mouth was in horrible condition, that they didn't really have a clue, at least of many of the things that they should do. So the question is, why didn't they do it? Well, guess what, gang? Some of this is the emotional damage and triggers, and some of it happens to be from maybe a dental experience, okay? It can be from a dental experience. It can also be from other experiences. So understand that you're not a therapist, okay? You're not a psychologist, and you're not supposed to be waiting in the area that is outside the scope of what you're doing. However, it's important that you understand that there are many things in this area that profoundly affect people and cause them to make decisions that will sometimes baffle you, okay? I promise you, people don't want to have horrible mouths. They don't want to have terrible teeth. It's embarrassing to them, okay? It's embarrassing. They don't want that. They never wanted that. However, it happened, okay? And you can help them better if you understand that there are some triggers and there are some damages that occurred. Even if you don't understand what they were, you can be very sensitive. So don't be that bull in a china cabinet, so to speak. Be sensitive to the fact that you really don't know what's happened to that person. So treat them as if they're your best friend, they're your family member, they're a loved one, whatever, okay? I mean, your job is to love your patients, believe it or not. And if you haven't heard that, and if you're shocked by that, then I'm glad, because at least you're hearing it. All right, so let's move to the next topic, which is that is really about, tradition and status quo. So what do I mean by tradition and status quo? Well, a very simple thing that you'll run into pretty quick if you haven't already, that happens in dentistry a lot, is a certain tradition that people believe that when you get old, you're supposed to have dentures, and that's just part of the aging process. Fortunately, that is slowly fading out. However, depending on where you end up practicing, it may be the norm. It may be something that you see quite handily. Status quo, of course, is maintaining things just the way that they are. So many times, people will say, well, if it's not hurting, I don't want to do anything about it. Pain is a wonderful motivator. Unfortunately, by the time somebody's hurting, their treatment is more expensive and more extensive, and the chances of a great outcome are less. So, in helping people, remember we said we're in the business of helping people? In helping people, we want to perhaps open them up to some ideas that things can be different. There can be a change in what has happened in the past. Now, Another really important topic here is, a personality type. Very simply, like with this little picture I'm showing you. Some people view the glass as half empty or half full. You're going to be exposed during the course of your career, if you choose, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different ways of understanding personality types. And there's a lot of really good tools out there for you. And I encourage you to expose yourself to as many of those as you can. They're rich with information which will accelerate your growth and understanding of people. So people have lots of different types, and there's all kinds of models that we can use. Pick one and work with it. A simple one, for example, is one that's called a DISC model, D-I-S-C. Very simple model that even with your team, they can get it pretty quick. And it's a very powerful tool, and it's been well documented. There's lots of others. Find something that engages your excitement and your intellect, and work with it, okay? It will help you accelerate your understanding of people and why they do what they do and why they don't do what they should do, okay? So personality type really matters. The next one is upbringing and family. Many families will, for whatever reason, dental health is not important. I don't think that's a shock to you. I think you probably have already run into some of that. If not, you will. And depending, as I may have said earlier, depending on where you end up practicing, you may run into this a lot more than you think. I know that where I practice, people come from rural areas of my state, and they're missing a lot of teeth. And as adults, they're telling me, well, the only time we ever went to the dentist is when we had a toothache, and the only thing that happened was the dentist pulled the tooth. And that's their perspective of exactly what dentists are for. But now they're older and they're saying, I don't want to live like this. I find it hard to eat, et cetera, et cetera. So, we cannot judge that. But it does help us understand why people what they do. And I keep saying that topic over and over again, that title, because that's what this is about. So their family, the choices that parents made, choices that brothers and sisters made, these are really powerful decisions that are deeply ingrained in people. And so one question that I find very, very helpful when I'm talking, for example, to a patient, or as I call them, clients, is tell me a little bit about your parents. Specifically, tell me about their dental history. And sometimes people say, I don't really have a clue. Mom or dad never talked about it, ever. I think my dad had dentures. I'm not sure. I think my mother maybe had some of her teeth and a partial denture. Okay? So those kinds of things are very important, which will help you understand that where they're coming from. Because that's a really deep-seated thing that you're not going to be able to just in the course of a conversation completely change their mind, but you can help them on this process of being healthier if they want to be. It's one of those elements again, okay? So I'm identifying several elements so far, and there's lots to talk about on each of them, but we're identifying some of these elements. So let's move really to the next one, is assumptions and beliefs. You may say, well, there's some overlap here. Well, sure there is. Assumptions and beliefs are pretty well like what it would state here, right? There's nothing hidden about that. What I find is that people have a lot of assumptions about what we do as dentists. Unfortunately, we're also to blame for a lot of those assumptions from how we've treated people. And part of this program is to help you change that, to help you really see that we're here to help people in ways that are enriching and enhancing not just to their experience of going to the dentist, which would be a very small perspective, but their whole experience of life, including their general health, their feeling of well-being, their self-esteem. Boy, the things that we can do in dentistry are so powerful. But many people will have some beliefs, many times limiting beliefs about what dentistry is all about. Those beliefs can certainly include that dentists do nothing but hurt us. If you haven't had the experience yet, you'll have somebody, like a child, who's never been to a dentist before, and they come to see you, and you've never met them, and they are petrified. So I ask you, how in the world can they be petrified of you when they've never had a single experience? I think you know the answer. I think you know the answer. So parents especially will pass this along, both verbally and non-verbally, to their children. So there are certain assumptions and beliefs that people will have about dentistry, about life, yes, about life, about health, and about even the connection between the health of the mouth and the health of the body. You now know that there is that connection, but let me tell you, in the history of dentistry, there were very few people in the entire history of dentistry which have viewed the mouth as an integral part of our overall well-being. You know, fortunately, that there is a connection, and it's well documented. And but most of the people that you'll work with will not have a clue about that. So when you begin talking to them about that, remember that they have certain assumptions and beliefs that the mouth is over here and the body is over here, and they're not connected. But you know better. They are connected and they are one, and what happens to one affects the other, okay? It happens. Clients, patients don't really understand that because of these assumptions and beliefs. Therefore, go back to the original title. Why people do what they do and why they don't do what they should do. They don't understand that, because if they really understood it, as you know, if they really understood it, they would be going bananas to receive good care on a regular basis. They would just do what they could, but they don't. They don't. And that's okay. Your job, again, is to help people and help them understand those sorts of things. So, again, that'll be another topic. Models and examples. I can't state enough how we have to be a model, too, for our clients. We have to have good health. If you need to have dental care done, please get it done. If your team needs dental care, please provide that dental care. Whether you decide to charge them for it or not is immaterial, in my opinion. However, you have to be a model. On the converse, remember that they have models in their life, and they have watched those people and what their teeth look like and what they're used to seeing. And maybe it's, a smile that's just really, ugly, but the friend or the parent or the role model or whoever, it just wasn't really that important to them, so they assimilate that as not being very important. So again, one of the things that you can do to help change this go through this process of helping them to do things a little bit differently is understanding that there are these things, such as the role models or models and examples, that will affect them and cause them to make that decision. It goes back to perspective is reality, right? Perspective is reality. Perspective is reality. Make it your mantra and understand that a person's perspective is their reality. Okay, so let's go to the next one, fears. We talked a little bit about emotional damage and triggers. Fears are certainly one that we run into a lot in dentistry. It's been, depending on which study you read or whatnot, fear is one of the top factors that people don't seek out dental care, okay? Fear is one of the top factors. If people find receiving dental care important, they'll find a way to pay for it, or at least start on it, okay? So understand what those fears might be, and it's not a bad thing to ask them about that. If you're picking up on the fact that they are wringing their hands, or they seem really timid, or that they have this look of fear in their eyes, don't ignore it. Stop what you're doing. If you already have a glove and mask on, take those off. Take their bib off. Sit them up in the chair. Go to another room even and sit down and say, I want to address something with you that I see going on that I'm really concerned about, and I'd like your experience to be a lot different. And, what are you feeling right now? Okay? It may not require that you do all of that to that extent. It could just be sitting them up in the chair and say, I see that you're uncomfortable or something's going on, so tell me about that. And they may be like, I have this phobia about needles. It's just, I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt. Short story. I once had a patient who was so severely needle phobic, and over a course of several appointments, she was finally ready to receive her first injection. You're saying, a course of several appointments? What'd you do? How'd you make any money? It's not about the money. Don't worry about that part. So I actually go to give her an injection, and I have her open her mouth, and I have the syringe, and I'm halfway in her mouth, and she starts screaming in pain. I have not even started the injection. I have not even pricked the mucosa, okay? That's how powerful things can be. So don't forget that people's fears are huge, huge drivers in not doing what they should do, okay? And so please don't ignore that. Okay, seek to understand what's going on with that. Just ask them. Be open and listen. Be open and listen. Ignorance, that's certainly pervasive. We see it all the time, right? We know that if people had information that they would make different choices, right? Well, maybe, that's just one of the things. But you can't ignore the fact that not understanding something is not empowering to people to make good decisions for themselves. So part of your job in helping people is to help them understand things that they know nothing about, and presenting the topics to them in ways that they can understand. All right? Because ignorance is a big block to have people not do what they should be doing. So many times when they do understand, you'll see the light bulb almost go off in their head, and they go, oh, I get it. Okay? So your job is, in many ways, to help them understand these things. Now, they're not going to understand it by you sitting down there and telling them like they're a little child. But that's a whole nother topic, okay? So we'll come back to that some other time. Let's move to another one, preferences. People have preferences about all kinds of things. We live in a culture of preferences. If you want to buy a pair of shoes, you can buy a pair of shoes in any color of any material. The sole, which has anything on it. It can have any kind of decorations. It can be, if you're a man, it can be a tie-on, a slip-on. It can be a square toe. It can be a pointed toe. It can be a round toe. You can have a buckle. Oh my gosh, we have so much choice, and therefore we develop certain preferences in what we do. So why do people do what they don't do? Or why, that they should do, for example? Well, sometimes it's preferences. You want to ask about that. I'm not saying sit down and say, so what are your preferences? But I am saying, ask them, what are your preferences? Okay? But we're not going to say it in that way. We're going to ask them certain questions. And we'll go into that at a future time also. Another one is the living environment that they are in. If health is not very important, you may not see many of those clients, but it is something that makes that decision. But you will see them at some point, chances are, when they're in pain. Because when they're in pain, they want to talk to you, they want to see you, they want help immediately. It is a good opportunity to open up a conversation in a relationship, which may lead to them to have a better future and avoid things like the pain. So living environments are certainly one of those elements that can affect people. Diet, nutrition elements, all kinds of things along that living. So remember that there's those social aspects, or what I call living environment. So I'd like to wrap up with a couple thoughts for you and emphasize a few things about understanding people. This is a lifelong journey. It will be rewarding. Believe it or not, it will be rewarding if you choose it to be. It's also going to be very frustrating at times. Sometimes you're going to shake your head and wonder, how did I get myself into this? I'm encouraging you to take to heart these topics I'm talking about just today, this short topic of why people do what they do and why they don't do what they should do. And continue to explore that and start noticing that. Notice it in yourself. Start with yourself first. Then start noticing things about other people and become a real student of understanding that. Because the rewards for this are really fantastic. And for some of you, that may be that monetary rewards. For others, it might be just the sheer reward of being able to be involved in people's lives and make a difference for them in a very positive way. And the difference of future generations. I know that kind of sounds rather philosophical, but you know what? It is not. At least in my perspective. That's my reality, okay? That's my reality. So your ability to excel at this truly is one of the primary determinants of your success or failure, okay, or failure in your practice. You can be the greatest technician in the world. I call technician because when you're in school, you're learning how to be a technician, okay? You're learning how to be a technician. And so what I'm saying to you is that there is so much more to doing dentistry and being a dentist than just being a technician. There'll come a time at which you can do dentistry upside down, backwards, and in your sleep, and you don't even think about it, really. There will come that time, and it will become second nature, just like riding a bike. But the one thing that will always challenge you will be people and understanding people. But you know what? That's also one of the things that makes this profession so fascinating and so interesting, is because every single person is different. Every single person is different. And that is what will keep you excited, because you know what? If you did class 1 fillings all day, or if you just scaled people's teeth all day, you're going to be bored out of your mind after a pretty short period of time. It's the people. All right? It's the people that make the difference, and that's what we're here for, right? We're here to help people. I hope that's why you're here. Okay? So, remember, this was just a small piece on a very long journey, but a great journey. And it will build and build and build. So remember, though, the rest is up to you. Thanks for letting me spend this time with you, and congratulations on listening to this program. Look Look forward to seeing you.